Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. All right, so welcome to the Simplify 101 webinar, everyone. Stacey, take it away.
All right. Okay, so I know that some of you may be familiar with one or both of our organizations, but Simplicana was started by Eliza Cantley, and she is a professional organizer, and I'm one of the members of her team. And a lot of what I'm going to cover here today are just kind of the original kind of things that she has discovered and kind of come up with a system for the people that she works with. And a lot of these are not just like tips and tricks on how to organize your house, but a lot of them kind of get into a bit of the deeper psychology of simplifying and letting go and finding a new life for your things, which is why this is such a great partnership with Leslie and what she's working on, what she'll talk about here in a bit. Oh, here we go. Get this figured out. Okay, again, we mainly focus on the Kansas City area, but we also do remote sessions and help people from afar. We can do phone, that type of thing. And simplifying your life is not just about things, but also like your digital presence or your digital life, having like an inbox with thousands of unread emails or the people in your life. So a lot of this, while we're talking about things, it can really apply to other things, other non-things in your life. So Re.Use.Full is, again, this great partner because when you organize your life and you declutter, one of the things that I personally have struggled with is how do I get it out of my house? That's always been my biggest hurdle. Is I know I need to give this away. I need to get rid of it, but I also don't want to throw it away. I don't know who wants it. I don't know if it has value, and so partnering with Re.Use.Full is a wonderful way to help find things a new home. So if you know organizations that might be interested in partnering with Re.Use.Full, that's a great opportunity as well. Okay, so what is clutter? So clutter is stuff that doesn't have a home, and it's a delay in decision making. So a lot of times you might have like a pile of papers, or you might have some things on a front bench, that type of thing. Those are the hardest things to figure out what to do with. And oftentimes those are just a physical manifestation of something else that is going on in your life. A good example of that might be, where is stuff in your life, right? So a lot of times things might end up in a junk drawer, or they might end up in a garage that looks like this, or your basement. And then even if it's something that you want to keep, or something that has value to you in a sentimental way, or value to you as something you might want to use later, you don't have access to it. So you might not even know if you have it. It's too much effort to go find it. And so we end up buying more of the same thing. A great example of this with like your pantry or your food is your cabinets are full, but you feel like you don't have anything to eat. A lot of your food might be expiring before you use it. In your garage, it might be that things are underneath things or in things. It's particularly difficult when you live with other people because not everyone puts things back in the same place. So a lot of this is become more relevant in people's lives since they are spending more time at home during the pandemic. I know for me personally, I did a bunch of different projects. Eliza and I, who's the founder of Simplicana, we spent a lot of time organizing things just because we were home more and we were using things more. So back to the psychology piece of it, a lot of it is thinking through, why do we need all this stuff? What is our attachment to things? Why do they end up in our house in the first place? And then what do we do with them? And there is, of course, this big movement on minimalism, and that's not what I'm here to necessarily talk to you about today. I'm not going to preach to you, tell you that you're doing anything wrong by keeping your stuff. no judgments. And I also ask that you don't make judgments on yourself, because a lot of it is very difficult. We live in a society where our stuff is a big part of what we do. We buy things online when we go out. We're, a big gift giving culture. Again, if you have children or other people in your home, there's stuff from different ages or very different times in your life. Most people have stuff from their childhood in a box, or old love letters, things like that. So there's a lot of reasons why we think that we need all of this stuff. And so I'm going to go through today some ideas behind how to think about your stuff and whether or not it needs to stay or go. There are some clues that you can kind of tune into and have some self-awareness about regarding whether or not it needs to go. And I think it's really easy when we have things to, again, it's a manifestation of other things going on in your life. So a lot of times clutter is, this kind of squirrel, okay, I'm not going to deal with you right now. I'm going to go, I really know I need to deal with this thing that's kind of sitting out there, but I really need to make dinner, or I have this work thing, or nobody's going to see this because it's in my bedroom. I don't know about everyone else, but I feel I have discovered in my life that when I don't necessarily need the clean house as much as I need the decluttered house. If I have clutter everywhere, a clutter at a spot that I just keep passing all the time, it's this ever-present anxiety that kind of follows me. And then when I come home for the day, or when I'm done with work and my house has less clutter, I feel just more at peace. I can relax more. I can enjoy my space. So part of organizing our clutter and decluttering is telling these piles or these things that we don't know what to do with, you're not the boss of me. It's a really empowering exercise to be able to go through stuff and have a process for deciding what to do with it and giving it a new life. So if you see something, you're like, I don't know what to do with that, then that is clutter. So it doesn't mean you have to get rid of it because it's clutter, but if you're like, I'm not sure, then it's probably something that you need to kind of figure out in your home where stuff like that goes, or you need to have what I'll talk about later, like a donation station or something that you can put it in. Another thing for like personal physical things that you feel when you see something, it's like furrowed brow. If you're sighing or you're saying, so like say you're doing a project in your house or you're trying to organize your kitchen, like put stuff in the dishwasher and you don't know where something goes. If you're pausing, you're not sure, that's clutter. So that's the type of thing that we're going to talk about. Okay, so Eliza's come up with the Sinister Six. Eliza's been doing professional organizing full time. She just had her 11th anniversary for Simplicana. And these 6 items are the things that are the biggest blocks for people. And most of these things really in the end come down to fear of letting go. And there's different versions, there's different kind of flavors of that. And then the second piece of it is, okay, if you are able to make that decision about something, where does it go afterwards? And so we're going to talk through some of those things. So the first of the 6 is potential. These are the types of things in your home and in your life that you're like, I might need that. Like my husband might say, why do you still have 20 egg cartons? And, part of it might be that I have a project, or I think that I can use it in some way, maybe someday because of the pandemic, we're going to get chickens and I might need them. There's a lot of things like that end up taking up space, and it's almost mindless. You're like, well, that might have value to me in the future. So it's kind of thinking through those things, because they end up filling up our space, and the more that we keep, a lot of times they become more inaccessible to us, right? And a lot of times these are things that we are tied to because of this idea of scarcity. We feel like we might have, it might be hard to get or inconvenient to get again. So that those items that have potential tend to be things that kind of hang around. There are organizations for a lot of donations in Kansas City. There's Scraps KC is a great organization. I found that I can donate my craft supplies there, and if I have an actual project I'm working on, it's really easy for me to go and get another one of them at a low cost, and it serves a great mission. And so I feel really good decluttering some of those areas of my life, like tools or outdoor things or art supplies, half done crafts, because I understand that there is an avenue for me to get that again if I need to. And once it's in your house, it's harder to have it leave. So going to the next one, which is investment. Some of it is making those decisions, of course, before it enters your house. For example, for a project I was doing, you guys know what like a Cricut machine is, where it does the fancy paper cutting, or you can make your own mugs. And I was like, oh, I could use that. And I had a friend even send me a discounted one because I was talking about it. And I've made the decision that even though, I could buy that right now, I'm not going to do that project right now. So I'm going to buy it when I'm going to use it. There's a lot of these artifacts in my life of past things that I invested in. So it might be that at one point you played a musical instrument, or maybe you have a bunch of things from another time in your life that you feel like it's a sunk cost, right? You've already spent the money, and to let it go is difficult, right? There are a lot of these overlap. So of the Sinister Six, a lot of times if you see an item you're having a really hard time making a decision on or letting go of, a lot of times it's in more than one of these categories. So you might have a item that has potential, but you also spend a lot of money on it. And you're like, well, I already spent the money on it. I want to use it at least once before I give it away. So just having awareness of that and kind of looking at it and asking yourself those questions. Why do you feel like you need to use it? Could somebody else be using that every day? Like I had a crock pot that broke, and so I asked for one for Christmas, and I got two of them. Well, I kept the second one just because I thought if the first one breaks, I'll have a second one. But that's not, the purpose of things is to be used. So if you're not using it, it's a good way to kind of look at it to say, okay, do I really need this? Like, what value is it bringing to me right now? If it's not bringing value to your everyday life, it's helpful for me to think about who else could this thing serve, by letting it go. If it's serving someone else, it makes me feel better letting it go rather than just feeling the shame that I own it or the stress of not being able to find stuff because I have too much clutter. The third one is identity. Some of these things that we hold on to that are tied to identity are things that we really can be proud of, and or were significant in our life at one point, but they're not anymore. An example of this might be, trophies or awards. It might even be like a diploma, something like that. Oftentimes, what I think we get held up on identity is, this was important to me at one point, but now it could be worth money and I could sell it. So again, these overlap of these ideas can get us trapped with our stuff. And so thinking through, why is this part of my identity? There can be things that, you tie to yourself as part of who you are. An example might be if you love the theater and you keep all of your playbills. because you collect those things because they are your love of theater. Well, maybe you can let those kinds of things go and just have and focus on those memories, like building those memories. Having a photo of you and the person you went to the show with in an album or on a drive, an online album. That might be more significant to you. So thinking through what are these groups of things that you tie to your identity, but they're not really necessary in your life. Another big one of these is books. I know that my bookshelf, I don't know, it's always complicated, but it really does tie into who you are. And so what I've found is I try to have more awareness of what books I do have. And then when I'm having a conversation with someone or I'm aligned with someone in some way, I will give the book a new home if they are interested in it. And there's also a lot of organizations that will take books, including like training manuals and things like that. This one is a really hard one, obligation. There are a lot of people I know who have family members or friends that are decluttering, organizing, and they feel like they are being gifted stuff they don't want. You don't have to take things because it was a gift. If you worry about somebody giving you something and then when they come over, they're looking for it, you can find a way to possibly say, this was something I really valued and I know somebody else will, kind of tying it to an organization, where you can look at that still as a gift. That can be a gift that you're giving someone else. You're giving that item a new home. So I find that these things of obligation in my life are especially difficult when it comes to my child, is that there's sentimentality kind of tied into that. And I actually I went over to my mother's house because she is decluttering and getting rid of things. And I didn't know that she had kept boxes of stuff for me. Like there was a whole box of horses, like toy horses from my childhood. So I think there's a lot of times where we're like, our adult children may want this someday, so I shouldn't let it go. And my mother told me that she has my father's grandfather's tools, so there's certain things that are passed down and he hasn't used them. There's not really any purpose for them in his life right now. He doesn't really have any sentimentality tied into it. It is okay if you have something in your life, regardless of what category here that it fits into. If you have something in your life that you look at it and you feel like it needs to stay, then that will be in the next section of this presentation, is then how to find it at home. But kind of going through first and saying, why am I holding on to this? And if it's due to obligation, one of the ways that I look at this is obligation equals boundaries, right? So you get to set the boundaries for what you have in your life. And by having clear boundaries and understanding what you want to keep or what you want to let into your home, that really does help with when you look at items and say, yeah, I can let that go. That is not something that is serving me. So this one is a really difficult one, both this one and the obligation. Eliza likes to say, once it leaves your home, that feeling that keeps coming up that's difficult, once it has left the building, a lot of times we get resolution. So it is sometimes harder to hold on to it and always wonder, should I get rid of this? I don't really wear this. Maybe it is something that someone that was close to you that you're no longer close to, or maybe it's somebody in your life who's passed away. Eliza has a story about how her mother died when she was younger of cancer, and she had these beautiful headscarves, and it was a way to feel connected to her mother. but these headscarves sat in a drawer and they didn't really do anything. And she knew that they were there, though. It was a connection to her mother. So what she ended up doing was they were very nice silk scarves. So she sold them and she turned them into a part of her fund to take a trip to Australia. And in Australia, she did a lot of things that made her feel very connected to her mother. So she was able to turn a physical item that was kind of a heaviness in her life that she didn't know what to do with, and she felt this obligation, this connection to. She was able to translate that into a new memory. So there are some of these things that it is definitely a bit of a psychological thing. You have to process through some of the stuff before it goes, and that's totally understandable. I think that's something that many of us have to do. But you can translate something into something else. This one is potentially the hardest one, and it's going to sound similar to a lot of the other ones, especially the first one, which is potential. One of the things that is a hang up for me and many other people is feeling like something has to go to the exact right place. So I may have an article of clothing or that I spend a lot of money on and that I love, but it really no longer fits me. And sometimes I get really hung up on wanting it to go to a friend. I want it to go to somebody in my life that I have a connection to, because when we do that, sometimes we feel like we really haven't let it go. We haven't really given it away. It's become a gift instead of throwing something away. And part of it is getting to the point where you see things that leave your house are not trash. And that's part of the wonderful thing about Leslie and what she's doing is that the things that leave your house are not a failure. You're not a failure for owning things and then deciding that it's time to let them go. That is actually can be a positive thing. And a lot of times we get really stuck on this one. When Eliza started Simplicana, she decided that she could either bring organizing supplies to her clients when she went to help them, or she could help them remove items from their home. And she made the decision that was of more value to people. And from a personal standpoint, that is definitely the place that I've gotten hung up the most, is getting stuff out of my house. And so a lot of this is, once you're kind of educated, you've educated yourself on where things can go, or you have a solution for more easily getting them to a place that makes you feel good. It's like magic that you feel better about letting these things go. So helping people in need is definitely a big part of that. So again, these are the six items: potential, investment, that sunk cost, identity, when it's something that you feel is part of who you are, but maybe you even get some self-worth from it. Obligation or guilt, perfectionism, which is, it has to be the right place at the right time, right person, and then, or feeling like you're a failure for even having it. And then that loss of connection, whether it's it can be not just even to a person, but to a hobby. There's definitely things that we all have invested much of our time and energy into in the past. Maybe we took classes on that, but we're not really doing it anymore. And that final letting go can just be much more difficult. So all of these, the Sinister Six as a group, are really these things that are internal, but they feel external. They feel like they're about stuff when really they're really about something inside of ourselves. So that's part of why getting organized is really hard, because it's kind of like, for me, watching a sad movie. If I know it's a really great movie, but it's going to make me sad, I might avoid it. So getting organized or getting decluttered, that's one of the things we have to recognize is it's a hurdle for us, is that there is sometimes an emotional load. But understanding that and recognizing that there is an emotional piece of that is going to help you make that step. And sometimes you're just not ready to let go of something. But if it has a place and you've organized it and you know where it is, and you can come back later and re-explore that. So that's one of the reasons why people like to hire a personal organizer, is for that accountability and that assistance. And we really focus on, if you decide you want to keep something, there's not going to be any rolling of eyes. There's not going to be any shame. We have a connection to stuff in our life, and it can be a really positive thing. Whether it's an inventory, or you have a set space in your life. Say you have a lot of awards or something, a collection that has a lot of sentimentality, but it's sitting in a box. Sometimes organizing and decluttering is about finding a home for that feels good. So maybe it is finding a way to display those things. Or again, all of your 6 hammers are in the same place, and then you figure out which one that you like to use, and you always know where it is. And so then over time you can give some of that stuff away. So it can be a process. So this is a list of some tips to kind of help you with taking these steps over time. You don't have to sit down and say, this is the week that I am going to take off work or set aside and just go through everything. There's a lot of famous, like the Marie Kondo stuff, where it's like it is a job. You go through every single item. You don't need to necessarily do that in order for your home and your life to become decluttered. A lot of it is just kind of retraining your brain and having systems in place. And of course, the first one is don't bring it home in the first place. It's helpful for me, when I made the made the comment about the Cricut machine. I could easily buy a Cricut machine. I can afford a Cricut machine. I can see the value in owning a Cricut machine, but I have friends that have them. And yes, it's a little more challenging during the pandemic, but I could go spend time with my friend and do a project with my friend, and I don't need to own that thing. So a lot of it is kind of thinking through that. Or if I tend to do something with somebody else, we don't need to necessarily both have that thing. We can find a new home for some of those items. The second one is something that is really a game changer for me, which is a donation station on each floor. And this could be a box. For me, I have like collapsible laundry baskets, or that can kind of, if I'm not using them or I need them out of the way or there's nothing in them, I can collapse them. And it really helps me, because if not, like, I know not everybody has children, but for me, it's my kid grows out of things. Soon as I put it on, I'm like, this is not working. I have an immediate place to put it. That is so helpful for me. And, if I see some, it just keeps coming out and being in a place, I can put it there. And then what I do is, before I take that stuff to donate, I'll go through it, and I might have some items I put in there that I do have somebody in mind that I want to gift that to. But I always ask them. I don't wrap it up and make it then their obligation. I don't pass off my clutter, but I let them know. I take a picture of it and say, hey, is this something you'd be interested in? You can say no. And that's kind of my process. Our clothes are one of the things that can get us the most, piles, laundry, all the folding. The backward hanger trick is, if you have your clothes at the beginning of season, if you do like a seasonal swap out, or at the beginning of the year, you just put all of your hangers backwards. And as you use things and you put them back after wearing them or washing them, you just put it on the normal way. After a certain period of time, you're going to see what you haven't been using. And that's going to help you understand, what am I not wearing? What am I hanging on to for years that that for whatever reason, I think I'm going to, be able to wear it in the future to an occasion, or it used to fit me and it doesn't anymore. That kind of helps you have like a visual of how you're using that. Like the scarf example, you can change things into memories. So again, collections, hobbies, things like that in the past, how do you change that into something that is still important to you? You're not dishonoring those things by letting them go, but you're turning them into something that has significance and can be important to you without you holding on to it. One example of this might be, I have a lot of things from, that have been come down to me from family, and are tied to foods, but I don't like to have like, the one jobber kind of things in my kitchen, because my kitchen's fairly small. So I try to tie things like that to, the memory. I just remember, like, instead of having, a whole bunch of these things, I try to like tie like a family recipe or something to the memory instead. Taking a picture of something oftentimes does it. Again, it lets those, we call them ghosts, leave the building. Again, it's those things that you're like, man, I really know that I'm just going to leave this in a box and pull it out every 10 years. A great example of this is, wedding dresses, that type of thing. But if you take a picture, you have some other kind of connection to it. Sometimes it's easier than to let it go. And then the last one here is setting new boundaries. So some of it is, what is hard for you in your home when it comes to clutter? For me in the past, a lot of it has been clothes. So I have set new boundaries around it. If something doesn't fit me any longer, I might take a picture of it or something like that, and then I let it go and think about who else will enjoy it. And I've gotten to the point where I don't just keep bags of things, hoping that a friend that is that size might go through it. I let it go and know that it's going to a good place, because I know where my donations are going now. So some of these things you might ask yourself is, what did that person that gave you this item give you that you really do love? Because again, on the obligation piece, there, sometimes you feel like you have to honor this person by keeping it. But a lot of times it's really just about the connection. So how can you keep that feeling? And then what is the real cost? There's a lot of things that we have that scarcity mindset about, but that are, it's really not as big of an investment as we think it is, to let that go. And if we really needed it, like rebuy it. Example might be, a basket full of yarn and those types of things. What is the real cost? The cost could actually be that it just takes up a big part of your life, a big part of your space, and keeps you from feeling that peace of having things, in their place. And then kind of that end all be all, what's the worst that will happen if I let this thing go? Many times it's that you can go buy it again. If you want your child to experience it, or you want to share it with a friend, you can tell them a story about it, or you can suggest that they read that book, that kind of thing, instead of holding on to it until you find the perfect person to give this book to. So those are some of the tips to kind of help you through this. One of the big things that we try to do is keep things out of the landfill. And this is important to a lot of people. It's not important to everybody, but it's very important to us. And we feel really good about where stuff goes. We're making sure that stuff has a new home. And almost everything can find a new life. In some ways, a way to think about it is, when it is sitting in your home and you are not using it, it is not doing what it was meant to do. If you can find a new life for it with somebody who can actually use it and it can bring them joy, rather than cause them stress and being hanging over, hanging over your head. Letting it go can often really help organizations and individuals in need, and it really does help keep things out of the landfill. Um, there is a place to take almost everything. And so before you throw stuff out, there's donation, there's recycling, there is, composting, all these options available to us. So explore those options. And then once you know what they are, it really helps you look at your items and say, okay, I can let go of this and give it that new life. You don't get stuck on that. Okay, I know I need to get rid of this, but where does it go? So that's kind of where I'm going to leave things and open up for questions. And then if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. And then I'll turn it over to Leslie, and she can talk to you about what Re.Use.Full is and why it exists. Feel free as well to go and check out the Simplicana blog. There's a lot of really great articles out there that kind of help you through some of this, like the mental clutter you have to get through before you can get through some of your physical clutter. And there are some sustainable organizing supplies that we put together in a kit store. But we do recommend that, again, with this, like reducing landfill, always start with what you have. Drawer organizers I use, like old iPhone boxes, little things that come in the mail. When I can, I try to instead of going and buying a plastic thing to help me organize, a lot of times I have things that I could use. So there's a lot of creative ways to start with what you have. And going and buying a bunch of supplies is not always needed to get rid of clutter. A lot of it is really starting with a donation station and kind of taking some time to realize and recognize that there are some of these emotional and mental things that are work that we have to do to get that stuff moving. So I'll open it up to questions before we talk about.
Stacey, how about we go through Re.Use.Full just really super quick, because I'm kind of freaking out a little bit because I'm pretty sure you looked at my search history for that Cricut, because I so almost bought one. Not even making that up. It's kind of, it's kind of eerie. So I'm gonna just reclaim the host real quick and go ahead and just show people Re.Use.Full just for a couple minutes, and then we'll get into questions, because I mean, I feel like this presentation was really made for me. I just really recently realized that my physical environment represents the clutter in my brain. So wow. Just great job. Thank you so much. So I'm just gonna do this really quick, and we will get into questions, because this is awesome. So I already introduced myself, so you know who I am. These are my 4 dogs who've been remarkably quiet, but now I'm sure they're not going to be, because I just mentioned them. Here's where you can find me, and I'll also have that at the end of the presentation. So, we know the problem, lots of stuff going in the landfill, most of which could be reused or recycled. It takes a lot of natural resources to replace those things that are going in the landfill unnecessarily. So I had a lot of people who were just asking me, because I was in the nonprofit space, where could I possibly put my stuff that my kids are growing out of, that I'm possibly growing out of. My mother used to talk about how her closet was shrinking her clothes. and toys that they play with once that they got as a Christmas gift or birthday present, and then they're done with it. So there are lots of things that we're looking to rehome, as Stacey mentioned. So she also said about how people are taking time during the pandemic to unbury themselves and take a look around and see, you know, asking themselves, does it spark joy? Again, it doesn't have to be that serious, but those 6 things to think about were just really right on target for me. So we launched Re.Use.Full in late August. Right now we have 39 charity partners. As Stacey mentioned, if you do have anyone works in the nonprofit field who could benefit from Re.Use.Full, we'd love to have them sign up. Currently, the makeup is 34 nonprofits, 1 school, 1 church. And so all they have to do is go to reuseful.org, click on sign up, and then they fill out a simple form. It just takes a couple minutes, so it's totally free. And then once they get signed up, then donors can search by the criteria that the charity entered. So if you have stuff that you're looking to rehome, you can check what kind of stuff you have. And then if you're interested in also narrowing your search by the kind of organization you want to donate to, that's possible as well. And then when you click on view results, you get a list. And I always like to say, we're like Tinder, but we don't make the dinner reservation for you. So we'll do the matching. But you will have to, as the donor, go ahead and contact the organization. So we have a handy dandy contact button at the bottom there. And this is after you click on the link to learn more about the organization. Then you just click on that contact button, and you're able to get this contact form, and we'll email the person whose email address was entered when the organization signed up. So that is Re.Use.Full in a nutshell. It's really straightforward, and we hope easy to use, but we're always looking for suggestions. And I do want to take a second and recognize Jess Phillips, who is here today. She and her husband Nick own Hypercubed, and really created the engine that runs Re.Use.Full. So much appreciation to their support for really making this possible. So with that, I am going to go ahead and stop my share and open it up for any questions. What questions or comments even, what thoughts did you have as Stacey was going through her presentation? It just resonated like crazy with me. So every single one, I'm like, yep. Anybody have any thoughts as they were listening today? Jess, what were you thinking?
So I was just going to say it was fantastic, Stacey. As a psychotherapist, that's where it registered and just resonated within me, because we all have patterns of behavior, and the things that we were doing prior to COVID, stockpiling. I mean, it was just fascinating to me how much stuff we had in our home, but until we were stuck in the home, I didn't know. And
Yeah.
so then after COVID, it's like, wow, why do we have all of this stuff in here? And we had just gone through kind of this minimalist ideal of getting rid of everything. So I thought we had done such a good job. But then after we were in the house, it was like, wow, we still have all this stuff. And so it really gave us time to slow down and see our patterns of behavior. So touching on all of these areas, I was really impressed. So I'm just blown away, because I agree this is very personal, and I think everyone has their own issues with why they attach to their items. And for me, it is that kind of perfectionism and control. I want to make sure my stuff that I love goes to the right people. And I think that that is so important for me. And it's because I grew up without anything. And I know that as an adult, I want people to care about it as much as I do.
Mhm.
And so that is so empowering, because letting go of that control and knowing that it is just material stuff, and knowing that it's okay to let go of that. It's okay to say, you know what, somebody else is going to get worth out of this. And by giving and allowing them to have it, it's bringing something to them. So I'm okay with that now. And so as we've kind of gone through this process over the last 18 months and joining and partnering with Re.Use.Full and meeting Leslie, it has been so cleansing. And so for us as a family, teaching that to our children, they're 4.5 and 6, and allowing them to understand it's okay to get rid of these toys, and we're rehoming them, and now somebody else gets to love them. It's been really eye-opening why we attach to things and feel this need to kind of keep it all in and stack it up. And that's where, for me mentally, I'm a stacker. I stack things, my books, my files, everything's a stack. And whatever's going on here, I can see the piles. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, we better deal with it. So then I kind of process it. So when everything's clean and organized, I'm like, okay, I'm healthy and everything's good. When it starts stacking, I'm like, whoop, we better deal with it. So I do think that it is very much of a coping mechanism. And whatever has happened within our lives and our childhoods and things that have happened to us, it is a reflection of what's going on within our home. So if we all have that junk drawer or that closet, it's like, we don't look at that.
Yeah.
Keep your stuff in there. So it is really great to have Reuseful, where we know we can go and connect and contact people that come and get it. And I have used the service and it is great. I've been so excited to just call people, schedule them, they come pick it up, and they're so wonderful about it.
Mhm. Yeah, and it is, talking about the psychological side of it. It some people do need that help. It is sometimes hard to do alone, and you don't. That's one of the reasons why people do hire professional organizers, but that doesn't have to be. You can do it as a family. You can do it as a friend. You can do a trade with a friend, and say, I have this project I need to tackle, and it would go a lot easier if I had someone just to sit and talk to while I did it. Um, and then being able to return that favor. So, I think just by acknowledging these challenges that are less about the stuff and more about what's going on inside of us, it can really help clear some of that stuff out. So
How about anybody else? Any, Badria, what did you learn? Badria, can you come off mute? Okay, maybe not. But she did put something in the chat. So yeah, she just wants to talk in the chat, and that's great. So yeah, just put your reactions in the chat, if that makes you, if that's more comfortable for you. Gail, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to share that I really appreciated this, and yes, I needed this. That's why I'm here. All 6 points really resonated with me, especially I think the loss of connection and obligation. I have been the recipient of many items from deceased family members, and they come with this burden that I create, this burden of caretaking. And I have gotten rid of some things, but then I fall into that area of it's got to go to the right place. And I have taken years and I have found some right places, but in the interim, I feel like most of my spare time is spent caretaking all this stuff
mhm,
and really feeling burdened by it.
yeah.
And I'm sure my family members did not intend that for me. I have taken that on. So anyway, you've given me a lot of food for thought, and maybe some of those right places I can find on Re.Use.Full. So anyway, thank you. It was right on target.
Good.
Yeah. Toby, did you have any reaction to today's information?
Was exactly all the issues that I have. So it was fabulous. I appreciate it. So yeah, all of them.
Yeah. I just recently moved, and then I'm also taking on a hobby. I'm not a crafter, and I've started doing it kind of out of guilt because I have all these empty dog food cans that we're collecting, and putting in the recycling bin every week. So with my 4 dogs, I have one that's enormous, and so somewhere between 40 and 50 dog food cans a week, putting in the recycle bin. I couldn't do it. So yeah, I've started amassing a lot of crafting supplies. But now I have room to store them, and I am committed to making that an organized thing. So I'm going to take certainly these concepts from today and hope to really keep them in the back of my mind as a lens to look through, going forward. Does anybody else have we have about 2 minutes left. Does anybody else have any last minute thoughts that they want to share? Question?
I was just going to say, I really enjoyed the fact that with Re.Use.Full's connection, there's a safety piece to it. I've used all sorts of different avenues for trying to share, rehome my items where, like with Craigslist, there is always this uneasiness of that connection. What's going to happen? Who's going to show up? And different organizations. So with this, it's been very much of a safety, confidence, where who's going to show up, the nonprofit.
Yeah.
You speak to them ahead of time, you know what you're going to get. And so that has been very helpful for us as a family. And that safety piece has been very nice. So I will say that's been huge. And I definitely think there's an added benefit there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Jess. And you don't know. I mean, even if you meet somebody at the Quick Trip around the corner, you still don't know what could happen. So really, really great point. Anyone else with a final thought? Well, I just wanted to thank you, Stacey, so much for being here today and delivering that amazing and super relevant information for us today. Just great job. And we really appreciate you sharing all that good stuff so that we can hopefully have a nice, peaceful space as you as you mentioned, which is so important to our own mental health. So with that, we're at time, and I'm so grateful also to everybody who joined us today, and I hope to do this again soon so we can keep getting the word out about how to have that peaceful space. So with that, thank you and happy Earth Day to everyone. And I hope to see you all soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Happy birthday.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.